Have you been to the Lansu Chinese Garden? It's like an oasis of peace and beauty right in downtown Portland. And this Mother's Day, they're going all out with spring blooms. You can also get crafty with your mom and make your own corsages, origami keepsakes, or even create a custom card. Plus, they have one of the best tea rooms in the city, so you can reserve a spot at their extremely popular Mother's Day tea tasting. It's like having a little moment of zen with mom. To learn more and reserve your tea time, visit lansugarden.org/Mother's Day. Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about the future of the Multnomah Safe Rest Village and why the city thinks it's being mismanaged. We're also looking into local cannabis business owners taking issue with a new Oregon labor law and the very real threat of a devastating wildfire in Forest Park. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Willamette Week reporter and author Brianna Wheeler and our very own executive producer, John Notarianni. Also, after the Roundup, Heather Barnes from Rose City Comic Con will be joining us for a sponsored conversation about this year's convention that's coming up September 5th through 7th, so stick around to learn more. It's Friday, May 2nd. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday News Roundup. Brianna, John, thanks for hanging out with me this morning.
Hey, Claudia.
Good morning.
For those of you new to the show, today is the day we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists in town. But before we jump into the news, I usually ask an opening question so our listeners can get to know our guests a little better. And today's opening question is related to the fact that today is 503 Day Eve, meaning our block party is mañana, starting at 1 p.m., ending at 6:03-ish p.m. in downtown's Ankeny Alley Plaza. And one of the things I'm looking forward to the most is Karaoke from Hell, which is live band karaoke. And it's open to anyone who signs up. But we have a few special surprises lined up, which brings us to our opening question. What present or former local leader would you like to see hit the karaoke stage, and what would their song be?
I can go first. I'd love to see the return of Ted Wheeler back on the stage.
Would you?
I think the song that he should serenade us all with is Take This Job and Shove It by Johnny Paycheck. Just really be like, I did my time and I'm out.
That'd be therapeutic. What about you, Brianna?
Gosh, I would like Joanne Hardesty to come out.
Okay.
And maybe sing the same song.
A duet, perhaps?
They should duet it, yes.
Oh my God, I love that. I didn't even think of the possibility of a duet.
I mean, a duet, come on.
Yeah.
The harmonies, they could be glorious.
We're just bringing people together with this holiday.
Oh my God.
I think that's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're expecting. Unity.
My pick is former Multnomah County DA Mike Schmidt. And I'm sensing a theme here. And I would love for him to sing Billy Joel's 1989 hit, We Didn't Start the Fire.
Would he update the lyrics with like Portland-specific references?
I think he could. Like, just as a reminder for those who maybe just moved in this year, welcome. He started his position during a very tumultuous time in not only Portland's history, but like the world's history. Mm-hmm. If you don't remember the song, it's Billy Joel rattling off pretty much a list of historical events and just pointing out that like, hey, the world is constantly in flux. No generation is responsible for all the troubles that it's facing. But one might argue that he always had an excuse for why things weren't gelling with him and other parts of the local law enforcement, including his own office. So I think he would give a very passionate and nuanced performance. And now the update of lyrics, I mean, that's art.
I'm just imagining the emotional catharsis that's going to happen on this stage over the course. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, you know what? 503 Day, guys. We all want to see you there. Please come down. And just so you know, next week, there's no more 503 Day.
Not for a year.
Mm-mm.
And I do want to say, I'm just happy to have the honorable Judge Brianna Wheeler of the 503 Day Portland Icons Costume Contest here with us on the show. Brianna is going to be there.
Such an honor.
Judging costumes with us. So
that's right.
Such an absolute honor.
I don't know how judges prepare because I'm also judging next to you. But we got to start doing push-ups or something because there's 15 contestants.
Start judging people in your neighborhood. Look out your window and just judge that fool. Judge that dog.
Start judging your coworkers. Just start judging people in your everyday life.
Creativity. I'm just going to go point by point,
Yeah.
Okay, well, on to the news of the week. Well, we're shaking things up this week because John is going first. He's usually our closer, but not today. John is moving on up.
Yeah, a little bit more pressure now that I know I have two judges on the panel with me today.
Do good.
This is from a bunch of great reporting by Sophie Peel over at Willamette Week. And this is about all of the sort of crazy back and forth on shelters in the city and like what the city is in charge of, what the county is in charge of, and how this continues to change. So as we get into it, I should specify a difference. There's safe rest villages, which are the smaller ones, and then there's temporary alternative shelter sites, which are the really big ones that were started by Mayor Wheeler. We're mostly going to be talking about the smaller safe rest villages in this segment, but like all in all, we're talking about like 750 different tiny pods in RV parking spots that are home to people who had previously lived on the streets. So there's a lot of tension over who pays for these things and who manages them. Up until this point, the county had contracted with local nonprofits to run the smaller safe rest villages. But now the city's getting in on the action, writing its own contracts to operate safe rest villages.
Mm-hmm.
And a few weeks ago, the city actually canceled a contract for operating the Multnomah Safe Rest Village. This had been overseen by the nonprofit Sunstone Way since 2022. This is a nonprofit that was given this contract by the county, but early last month, the city was like, nah, you're not doing it anymore. And they're giving this contract to Urban Alchemy, another nonprofit I'm sure we'll talk more about later in this. So Sunstone said they didn't really anticipate that this shift was happening. And what came out this week is sort of the back and forth over why this happened, right? So the city said that only 20% of people exiting Sunstone's site moved into permanent housing, and that was among the lowest of all pod shelter operators. They also said that Sunstone was turning away people during the site's expansion because they recently added a bunch more units. And the city said that Sunstone's occupancy was too low, that it was below the expected 90 to 95%. Of course, Sunstone disputed a lot of these things. They said that the lack of people moving into housing was because of a lack of rental assistance. They said that they needed to take care of people's safety and that that's why they weren't getting as many people in. And basically just that, like, it's a lot more difficult to operate these things than what the city wants to get out of them. But it is a big shift. And like people are looking at whether this means that there is a much bigger shift underway of who is actually managing these sites that are so important to like the mayor and the mayor's priorities, but also just all of us as citizens in Portland in general. What do you guys think?
Well, it seems like these goalposts are moving. I remember we talked about this, I don't know, year and a half ago, maybe more. And I remember it being like, there was a vagueness, like, well, could the city come in and just change all of the expectations? And what if they change the expectations halfway? And are they able to do that? And it kind of seems like we're looking at a worst case scenario right now where the city said, we expect this. Oh, no, we expect more, like halfway through. How does that work?
Well, I was wondering why Urban Alchemy, because I'm assuming reading through the article that they're choosing them because they're hitting those goalposts, right?
Right.
And so what I'm seeing is not them moving goalposts, but saying, look at Urban Alchemy's sites. They're doing well. Look at your sites. They're not doing well using the same data. And also like the fact that the city wants to take anything on, I don't think they want that.
Right.
I think that they're desperate at this point. It's a total like, just give it to me. I'll do it. Do you know what I mean?
I'll do it. I'll finish it.
Yeah, we got more headlines of the city needing to take more on.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's how I see it. But that's my assumption is like, okay, they're choosing Urban Alchemy, which, by the way, a lot of people in the beginning in this city, service providers were just like, we don't know about these guys.
Right.
But then they came in and they started kicking ass. Like people were just like, oh shit, these sites are working.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure there's still naysayers and there's bad things or whatever. But in general, those sites that were put in by Ted Wheeler, by the way.
Songbird himself.
Take this job and shove it. Boom, boom,
he got
boom.
so much shit for it. Don't you remember? They're like, you want to start an internment camp, you know?
Yeah. Wheeler camps.
I will say, like, Urban Alchemy has mostly been operating those larger sites, the TAS sites, as opposed to like the smaller Safe Rest Villages, which we're talking about, which I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm just saying that, like, you know, these are sort of like two different projects that I've been working on. But the bigger picture is that, like, there has been a real drop in people exiting pod shelters to permanent housing. Last year, about 47% made it into permanent housing. This year, only 14% had done so.
And you're saying overall for both Sunstone?
Overall, yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So I think that's part of why there is this like increased scrutiny because, you know, a lot of these sites have come online within the last couple of years. There was this like really promising moment and they're hitting a dip in the effectiveness. And I think that like we could spend hours upon hours sort of like debating the reasons why that is the case. But like that is a statistic that isn't even in this story, but I think sort of underpins a lot of the like anxiety and like urgency around this issue right now.
But I don't understand if the city's like, well, let's do Urban Alchemy. Like, why one over the other?
I mean, this is my hunch that is rooted in no facts. The interesting part here is the shift from the county contract to the city contract, right? The city is now contracting and Urban Alchemy is the city's guy, so to speak, right? Obviously, there was reasons put out behind it for this shift, but to me, it feels more just like, nah, we're going to take care of this. And we're going to use the company that we're comfortable with
Gotcha.
to be the contractor here.
To tighten the ship, in a sense.
Yeah.
I can see that too. So I'm like trying to understand here, John.
Yeah. But the really confusing part is just who's in charge of all of this shit, you know? Because there had been a move to transfer the oversight of all of these from the city to the county. That was going to happen later this year. Now that's indefinitely on hold. And we're actually seeing some momentum the other way, that more responsibility is going to the city. So, you know, we've talked a ton about the conflicts between the city and the county in this region and who's going to manage these things and who's going to pay for it. And what I'm seeing here is, again, a little nudge towards the city being in charge.
How do you feel about that, John, personally, as a citizen?
I am not enough of an expert on these issues to have like a strongly held opinion about who is the better steward here. I just think it needs to be one or the other, right? I think that we've been in a position for way too long where we've sort of set up this joint responsibility between the city and the county, and they're able to sort of point fingers at each other and blame each other for things that are not being done effectively. And it's like, someone just needs to pick a side. You know, one entity needs to be responsible for these things and like let them either, you know, trumpet the successes or take responsibility for the failures.
This is going to be an interesting turn.
Yeah.
I wonder who's going to, it's so sad. Like, who's going to come in on top? Like, nobody wants this job.
Yeah.
I think everyone just wants the results. Like, everyone just wants this to be done.
Yeah.
So good luck to the city and or the county. I just hope that the funds follow.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, Brianna, you're up.
Woohoo!
The Pacific Northwest's favorite garden event is almost here. For 41 years, the Clackamas County Masters Gardeners Association has been bringing us the Spring Garden Fair. We're talking over 100 vendors selling locally grown annuals, perennials, specialty plants, and vegetable starts. Pretty much anything you need for your garden, which also includes hand-forged tools and garden art from local artisans. Plus, Clackamas County Master Gardeners, as always, will be there to answer questions, provide free training, and test your soil pH. That's pretty cool. There's also stuff for the kids, food, and the Portland Iris Society show on Sunday, which is a crowd fave. This is all happening this weekend at Clackamas County Fairgrounds in Canby. The parking is free. Head over to springgardenfair.org for all the details. That's springgardenfair.org. Portland's premier pop culture event is returning to the Oregon Convention Center this September 5th through the 7th. As always, Rose City Comic-Con is delivering a fun, family-friendly 3-day celebration of comics, gaming, sci-fi, cosplay, anime, fantasy, and every fandom in between. Also, this year you can meet the cast of The Goonies in celebration of the film's 40th anniversary. We're talking Corey Feldman, Martha Plimpton, and Sean Astin, to name a few. And who knows, maybe maybe they'll have more info on the much talked about Goonies sequel that's in the works. For me, the cosplay competition is easily the highlight of the entire weekend. Just the time and effort that people put into their costumes is amazing. And if you're into shopping, there's the Artist Alley and Maker's Mart, where indie creators sell their wares. Rose City Comic Con isn't just comics, it's a celebration of all that is popular culture. There's quite literally something for everyone. Tickets are on sale now at rosecitycomiccon.com. That's rosecitycomiccon.com. All right, Brianna, what do you have going on this week?
Well, today I would love to bring some reporting by Maxine Bernstein from the Oregonian/Oregon Live about Measure 119. So a couple of Portland cannabis businesses are arguing that federal law preempts this Oregon pot labor law, which is Measure 119. So Ascend, it's a dispensary in Northeast Portland, and a company called Bubble Hash, is a cannabis processor. They urged a judge on Tuesday to halt enforcement of Measure 119. So Measure 119 requires them to set up labor agreements for their workers as a condition of their licensing renewal. We approved it in November. It went into effect December 5th. It requires that these cannabis retailers and processors, manufacturers, that they remain neutral regarding a labor organization communications with their employees. It would punish business owners if an agreement isn't executed. So even if the business has no employees, even if their workers don't want to be in a union, this requirement, it's going to stand. So I got to ask, have either of you been in a union?
I have.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
What union did you join, John?
I was, funny story, when I was at WDET, the public radio station in Detroit, I was a UAW member. United Auto Workers, because they had like a
what?
What?
Yeah, so weird.
That's
so they
the
had
most
like a professional
Detroit freaking
administrative like window. So I was a UAW member. We could not get the UAW to return our calls to save our life as journalists. But I was a card-carrying UAW member once upon a time.
You're like, I was in the hot dog union in Detroit. I worked nights. That's how I paid for school. I did night shifts at a grocery store. And so I was in like one of the largest unions in the United States, which is the Grocers Union.
Mm-hmm.
And even the union could not stop the terribleness that we have to deal now with, which is us checking out our own groceries. People who like that are dumb.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I don't know why, but I'm just like, all I'm saying is that sometimes unions, they don't really stick up for their workers, you know?
Which is kind of like the flag of this story is that Oregon has more than 200 unions, but only 2 organizations are designated to enter into these labor peace agreements, UCFW 555 and Teamsters. So Alexander Wheatley is representing these businesses, and I've got him quoted as saying, Measure 119 gives 2 unions outsized economic power. That puts a thumb on the scales. It upsets the balance.
Right.
It very much echoes what John just said. If there's only these 2 places that are a resource, of course they're going to be completely overwhelmed. And I really, truly believe that these 2 are the first of many, because this just went into effect. And if there's only 2 labor unions, oh my goodness, this could get very, very messy very, very fast. Because the judge that this came before, he says he understands both sides of the coin of this. He understands that this is a cash-driven industry, that these workers are in danger, but there is such ambiguity in this measure's text. Like, what does it allow an employer to do? Or what is the result of this? Furthermore, and maybe this is the biggest point, is that a law regulating speech can be deemed unconstitutionally vague if it is so unclear that ordinary people cannot understand what conduct it prohibits.
Mm-hmm.
It's good intentions. It is ham-fisted execution. I really think that this is going to become an issue for a lot of cannabis businesses in the state that don't have a direct in with these labor unions. If they're just calling and leaving messages on answering machines, if it's just sending emails into the ether, I mean, what is the structure that ensures that a small cannabis business will have a union representative available to them? So something to look out for, something to watch, especially if you're working for one of these small cannabis businesses.
Yeah, I find this interesting in regards to the conversation we had with you about a month ago when you were on, Brianna, about the unregulated cannabis industry here in Oregon and just how atrocious and abusive some of those working conditions can be, right?
Right?
And last time, let me quote Brianna Wheeler. You basically said something to the effect of like, this is an industry that has this sort of outlaw black market heritage and has for generations, if not longer, and that sort of trying to put these laws in place and fitting them into the system, like just culturally, there are challenges.
Right.
I mean, there's a big gulf in between like sort of illegal cannabis business and like the sort of laws that are being put in place in this instance, but I do see it all on a continuum.
Yeah. This struggle, this is not going to easily resolve itself. There's not going to be some kind of seamless overlap because this is the Wild West, And that's what we're trying to untangle, or we're trying to tame the Wild West. Can you do that?
This is why we got to legalize it federally, y'all. We wouldn't have to.
That's what's up.
I'm not joking.
No, you're 100% right. Yeah.
This is a big reason is we have like this very specific, legal cannabis nuanced, hey, this is how it's going to be for the workers. And the federal law is like, what?
Yeah. Say what?
Say what?
Wait, you're here too?
The business owners are like, can we just stop statewide? Because like, what is going on federally? And like, we're not agreeing here. And like,
seriously,
I'm being told to stand down, and I don't know what that means. Does that mean I sit down or do I stand up?
Right.
Well, Brianna, I always enjoy when you're on the show because you bring in these like really niche cannabis laws and like stuff that, like, to be honest, it's not widely covered. So thank you so much for bringing us this headline. We're going to take a quick break here. And when we return, how all of Portland is going to catch on fire.
Oh, no.
Ready to cement your reputation as the best gift giver in your family or friend circle? Like this Mother's Day, you can give the moms in your life an Aura digital picture frame preloaded with decades of family photos. Aura frames are just a great way to share your life with the people you love most that you just don't get to see as often as you like. Recently, I gave my sister who lives down in Los Angeles an Aura frame, and now I get to see pictures of my niece and nephew, and they get to see all the places I'm traveling to and my life up here in Portland. And the photos, they look like real prints. The frames are beautiful, so everything looks professionally mounted, even though I took the picture with my phone. And also there's unlimited storage, so you can add as many photos and videos as you'd like. Aura right now has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, our listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's the one I have. I can attest it's really nice. That's auraframes.com, promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey CityCast, something I appreciate about the Cozy Earth Mother's Day sale is that they know motherhood looks different on everyone. So whether you're raising kids, dogs, or cane, all moms work hard and they deserve comfort. So let me tell you about these Cozy Earth sheets. They feel like cool water in a sort of, is this the Ritz-Carlton or my own bedroom kind of way. The pajamas are what I imagine celebrity moms sleep in, buttery soft. You're looking for the right gift because the women who raised you feel like home, and they are going to love Cozy Earth bamboo pajamas, and I know this because it's 3:24 p.m. and I'm still wearing mine. To celebrate moms everywhere, Cozy Earth is supporting your favorite local podcast and giving our listeners a special promo. 45% off site-wide. This is a luxury brand, and that is a mind-blowing deal. Use Cozy Portland to take advantage of 45% off at CozyEarth.com.
Well, my headline this week is by Oregonian environmental justice reporter Gosia Wozniak. She did an investigation into what local officials have been doing to prevent and to prepare for the very real possibility of a wildfire in Forest Park. Now, Forest Park is a massive wildfire risk, but because of our historical wet winters and mild summers, the threat of wildfires within the Portland metro area was always super low on the city's priority list. And because of that, infrastructure for putting out such a fire does not exist. And in the last decade, local officials, including those in fire and rescue, think they all need to catch up to the reality that systems in place are not going to be enough to contain a fire if one were to break out in Forest Park. So fire officials have been stepping up prevention. They regularly patrol Forest Park during fire season. They clear vegetation, they check access points. And this goes beyond just basic trail management. Like there's weekly map updates detailing, fire lanes and roads and which paths are safely passable by an ATV, which bookmark that, brush units, you could only go in by foot. And you're wondering like, why, but have you been to Forest Park, everybody?
Oh yeah.
Of course.
Have you ever been like, oh, here's a beautiful entrance for a fire truck? Also, have you ever been like, oh, there's one of many fire hydrants? So
one of many.
Yeah. Park workers and volunteers have also been clearing invasive plants, which has been an indicator of like, this is what causes a lot of fire. I mean, look at the Maui fire. They pinpointed it to like all this grass that was never supposed to be there, So they're doing that. They're also clearing trash they find left behind by visitors or illegal campers. Also realizing that wildfires being fought now are wind-powered, houses and buildings in and around Forest Park can regularly schedule free wildfire risk assessments, which has been happening by the hundreds, by the way, making sure that embers cannot get inside vents or catch roofs or siding on fire, because as we saw in LA, that is how fires are spread. Because I think there was a point where people were like, fighting fake fires in their head, like
90s movie fires.
Yeah. Like backdraft fires, like a wall of fire coming at you, not like these little rains of fire that you're just like, they're everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
But even with all this good prevention work, there are still vulnerabilities, some that we've kind of mentioned a little. So there's outdated wildfire policies that focus the majority of resources on putting out surrounding areas rather than tackling an actual fire inside Forest Park. Mm-hmm. And there's also just limited know-how on managing such a large-scale potential fire in a hard-to-get-to area because it's literally never happened once before in the history of our city. Mm-hmm. Also, an increase in homeless people living in Forest Park has led to more spot fires. And we've been very lucky. But here's the scariest fact, and John sort of touched on it. There is only one fire hydrant in all of Forest Park that was installed in 1969, and literally no one thinks it's going to help put out shit.
No.
Like everyone's just
not.
like, oh, that useless fire hydrant? Yeah.
That piece of art, that vintage art.
How big is Forest Park? Like 5,000 acres or something?
Yeah. Well, aside from, the 2,000 homes and over 1,000 commercial buildings, that's like over 5,000 acres of just prime beauty. There's also the Japanese Garden, Oregon Zoo, Pittock Mansion, Hoyt Arboretum, the whole Washington Park, the Rose Garden, just these like landmarks, these iconic landmarks that make Portlanders proud to live here. But also, there's the Critical Energy Infrastructure Hub, which contains 90% of the liquid fuels for the entire state and most of the jet fuel for Portland International Airport. So we don't want Forest Park flying embers and fire to spread, right? A lot of people don't know this. There's a gas pipeline running through the park, including multiple power lines, which we've discussed in the past. And fire officials are also saying like, hey, this isn't just like tens of millions of dollars in damage to homes and businesses. We're talking long-term erosion and landslides along US 30. So the entire landscape of our city would change if there was a fire. Like it would
a major highway could become impassable for an indefinite amount of time. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So we're talking like Hollywood level, movie level destruction.
Yeah, thank you for unlocking this new terror in my life.
Oh yeah, of course.
Awesome. I had no idea that there was a gas pipeline running through Forest Park.
Yeah, because they were just like, well, what can happen?
Yeah, what can happen? We've got this one fire extinguisher over here.
Yeah, when I read this, Claudia, this sent me down a rabbit hole of trying to find a specific line from a specific news story I read in 2017. So that's when the Eagle Creek fire happened, right? Big wildfire in the gorge, really destructive. But it was basically like, it was hot enough that pine cones were shooting off of trees like flaming grenades.
Oh my God.
And that image of like pine cones as like flaming explosive grenades has always sort of stuck with me. Like you said, these embers actually at that point floated across the Columbia River to the other side into Washington, which I imagine is wider than the Willamette at this point. So like, even set aside the destruction potential to this park, even set aside the destruction potential to these homes adjacent to it. Like neighborhoods like St. John's, if there was a massive wildfire, we could see flames pretty easily jumping the river and getting into heavily populated residential areas as well.
John, why would you bring that up? I just want you to know that when we were discussing those headlines, John was just like, Claudia's going to talk about how her house is going to set on fire. I'm just like, John, stop it. Stop saying stuff out loud.
God, suck that back in.
I know. But I do want to say that if the CEI hub were to blow, like that's half of St. John's.
Yeah.
Like the river isn't going to put that out.
No.
Yeah. I'm laughing in sadness and scared.
I think if I get to choose the way that I want to die, I would love to take a flaming pine cone straight to the head. Just boom, done, out. Like what a Portland way to die, right? In that fantasy scenario, it's flaming pine cone to the head every time.
Flaming pine cone all the way.
Cone to the dome.
For some reason, I see the flaming pine cone to the head, you're knocked cold into the Willamette River, and then you get the procession you've always wanted.
Oh, I want them throwing roses into the water as I float.
You've been on the show before saying you want to go down that river and you want everyone to know. Bringing it all back, John.
I mean, levity everywhere you look.
Just an Easter egg for old listeners.
For the old heads, yeah.
Well, here are some things that people have been doing to step up the power of that one fire hydrant. So 2 homeowner associations in the West Hills have been maintaining their own wildfire sprinkler systems, which have been lauded as like, hey, this isn't just helping them out. This will put out neighboring areas and will cause a sort of like wet moat, you know? So they're just like, we should look into these things, you know?
Yeah.
But that's just, again, immediate rich people houses. But that's still not assuaging any kind of fear of the gas pipe. Let's just put it that way. They're also just like pointing out things like, hey, planes dumping water on the park fire. We have the Willamette River. We should start thinking about installing these plans. Like, where are they going to land? Like, they're just like, we need to build that infrastructure because that's how that's going to happen. And the county and the city is rolling out new evacuation software this year that sends out location-based notifications using data fed in by local authorities. And this was already proved successful, alerting residents during California's recent wildfires. So we're learning from California is what is going on.
Yeah. I think plans do need to be made. And this is something that we do need to be really vigilant about. And like, you know, when we're talking about the one fire hydrant in Forest Park, like on one hand, that sounds crazy, but like, how do you build a fire hydrant, right? You have to like cut water lines through the park, and it would be really disruptive to the natural space. I mean, we look at what just happened with PGE, who was trying to put some power lines through a small portion of the park where there's already power lines, and city leadership decided to shut that down. If we really want to be deeply proactive about these things, we're going to need to sacrifice some of the wildness of these very, very wild places and build in some modern infrastructure. And it might be unsightly and it might be disruptive to the natural beauty, but like if that's the price of safety, like I'm all for it.
Yeah, real quick though on the fire hydrants, they're not designed for like major urban fires because the water pressure drops, which is what they found out in LA. So that's the other reason why they're like, hey, so we could add like 20 more fire hydrants, but what's the goddamn point if the water is going to be like a drop? That's why they're like, can we focus on the Willamette River? Can we focus on the water, the river right there?
What about like water cannons? Can we set up like water cannons along the banks? That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. The other thing that they were talking about, they're like, well, what if we made the lanes larger for more ATVs and like people coming through, I think that's the one that they're just like, that might be expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's what's going on right now is they're weighing out their options. They're seeing what's most cost effective and also what's just more effective, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to bum everyone out. That's just what I do here.
Not Brianna. She's smiling all the way down the river.
Oh my God. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out with me. And sit tight because I got to speak to a representative from Rose City Comic Con, and that's coming right up after this. Y'all, it was a pleasure to host you, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Oh, see you at 503 Day Block Party.
See you there.
See you at 503 Day.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, Claudia here with Heather Barnes, the marketing manager for the Rose City Comic Con happening this year on September 5th through the 7th. So, Heather, for anyone who hasn't been yet, like what's Rose City Comic Con all about?
Rose City Comic Con is Portland, Oregon's Comic Con. It is one of the last true Comic Cons in existence, I believe, of this size and caliber. We are huge into comic books, comic artists, comic creators, comic publishers. Because there are quite a few in the Portland area. So it's kind of in the roots.
Being about a third of a comic book nerd myself, you know, I know that Portland is an epicenter for graphic and comic book makers, as you just said. I mean, the last time we talked about Rose City Comic Con on the show, Kelly Sue DeConnick was like one of the people who came on to pitch it, which is, if you don't know, if you're listening, that's like if Buzz Aldrin came on to like pitch NASA. You know what I mean? Like she's like one of the most acclaimed comic book writers out there. So I see Rose City Comic Con as an institution in the comic book industry, not just like a thing that happens in Portland, but for those not a third in the know like I am, like how do you see Rose City Comic Con fitting into Portland's larger creative community?
There's something called the Creator Pro track at Rose City Comic Con where anybody who's kind of curious about the industry in general, and it can be comics, it can be creating them, it can be selling them. It could be other parts of entertainment. It could be voice acting. We have some amazing panels and special guests that can help people sort of get their foothold and learn a little bit more about the industries that are heavily represented in Portland, but also across the country. So theoretically, you could come from anywhere and learn from some of the greats and, you know, take that back home with you, even if you're not a Portlander.
Who would you say comes to Rose City Comic Con? I mean, aside from hardcore comic book fans.
You don't have to know anything about comics to have a good time at Rose City Comic Con. So if you do, great, you're in for a big treat. If you don't, that's fine too. There's a little something for everybody there. We have celebrities if you're into meeting movie stars. And then, of course, we just have a ton of activities. Activities ranging for all ages. So this is an all ages event. You can bring your kids. You can bring your grandma. Everyone's going to find something fun here.
Yeah, like, so what would a non-comic book loving person find to do there? Are there any like specific events or things that you're just like, oh, here's something for anyone walking in?
Absolutely. If you want to go in, you're not interested in meeting a big star or anything like that, you're still going to have 3 days worth of stuff to do. We have programming panels happening all weekend. So these are sort of discussions by experts or enthusiasts in various topics. Some of them are really serious and talk about representation in entertainment. Some of them are really goofy, like Star Trek Jeopardy. It's a wide range of topics. If you're not into just sitting listening to talks, we also have a huge exhibit hall filled with exhibitor booths. These booths, they range anywhere from, some of our comic publisher friends exhibiting the latest releases that are coming out to local artists, crafters, and retailers selling all their wonderful items. I know that gaming is also really popular in the Portland area and everywhere, if I'm being honest. We have all kinds of gaming, starting with video gaming. There's arcade cabinets that people can come play. There's pinball. There's console gaming. And then if you're more into the tabletop gaming side of things, we have a huge tabletop gaming room not only is there a lot of your favorite games there, your Dungeons and Dragons and your Pokemon and just so many options, but there's also game creators there who are demoing their brand new games. And they will teach you how to play. Cool. Yeah, it's super, super cool. And so I highly recommend checking that out too.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add that I know that you guys do is you have like these after hour parties, which I think are really cool, that occasionally you'll have like, will be sponsored by local breweries and stuff. And you'll get to like hang out and draw with artists. I don't know if you're doing that this year, but I remember that happened last year and I thought that was sick.
Yes, we will be having a drink and draw event on Friday night. It's taking place at Spirit of 77, which is just a quick jaunt from the convention center. The tickets do sell out for that event, so I would advise that once they are up, you'll grab them. Basically, it's about drinking and drawing, and what could be more fun than that?
Seriously. Well, this year's Comic-Con specifically, I mean, I feel like every year you guys outdo yourself, but this one sounds super exciting because I'm like an elder millennial, so I was checking out the website to see who signed on so far and saw that there's a 40th anniversary celebration for the Goonies. And so there's going to be appearances from some of the main actors like Sean Astin, Martha Plimpton, and Corey Feldman. That's insane. That's like almost the entire cast. You just need like Josh Brolin and like Ke Huy Quan. And like that to me that's the entire cast. That is so cool.
If we are able to make that happen, we will.
So here's the deal. This is how you get Ke Huy Quan. You tell him that we actually have a restaurant that is an homage to Short Round. It is literally called Short Round, and I'm not making this up.
That's amazing.
And so you tell him you have to go to Rose City Comic Con because you got to go to Short Round.
I'm definitely going to make sure we share that.
Awesome.
That's a great fact.
Well, Heather, thanks for being here. Again, check out rosecitycomiccon.com to learn more. And you can grab your tickets right now for the event happening the weekend of September 5th through the 7th. We'll have that link for you in our show notes. Once again, Heather, thanks for hanging out with me. And thanks everyone for listening.
And thank you for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our podcast production team this week was John Notarianni, Julia Fiaioni, Patrick Emile, and Lizzie Goldsmith. Our Hey Portland newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, and our host is me, Claudia Meza. Original music by Jenny Conley and Steven Drizos. Additional music by All the Kimonos, as well as Sarah the Instrumentalist, Timothy Infinite, and Gregory David, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.